What's good, YouTube? It's Super Insane 18 here with my friend George, who unfortunately is undefeated on my channel, so we are going to go ahead and show you the Dogmatika Invoked deck profile that he's been playing on the last few videos. Do you have anything to say before we start?
Shout out to Dylan for stealing my third Super Gamma Seal, so I have to play a Blur Secret, and my name is Go.
Oh my god. Alright, so go ahead and show us what you were playing.
Okay, so I played Dogmatika Invoked because it's just two one-card engines. The deck functions very well, just because if you see any one card from either of them, you can just repeat that engine like ad nauseum. So you just have to wait to find the second one if you can't find it, or if you have both of them, just play both of your engines in perfect harmony. So it's invoked, so obviously 3 Alistair, and that's it. That's the only invoked monster in the game. So 3, 2, and 1 of the Dogmatikas. Ecclesia is insane. 2 can sometimes be bricky on the fleur-de-lis, but it's one of those things where you never want to be without the second one, just because, like, even opening one of them, you can still pick up the second one, use it on your opponent's turn, use it on your turn for the crackback, and then just have both of them and just beat down. And then Maximus is just one of those cards where it's like, I don't want to play it, but it just raises the ceiling of this deck so incredibly high, and you just have to hope your opponent doesn't have, like, the mirror match, or like they're packing like an Entis or something to get around it. Especially in things like Dragon Link or Infernoble. If you go second and you're able to crack their board and play into this, and you activate this effect like 2 times, they basically lost their entire extra deck, and they can no longer function. The best thing they can do is a red layer with some equips or a Gearfried. So,
what do you think about the people that are playing cards specifically for that? Like, you know, playing the Cyber Dragon Nova and a copy of Makaba in their extra.
They're punk bitches, and they should take them out so I can play better. It's obvious. It's honestly a really good option to play those in case of this. It's just one of those things where, like, friendly games and locals, I feel like you have to play this, but like going into like a YCS level event or like a nationals, I don't think I could bring myself to play it, because I don't want to just drop games for no reason, because I go first, I do this blind, and I get blown out. Especially with Called by the Grave not being at 3 anymore, you can't do the thing where you activate this with the Makaba, they go Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2 of their 2 dudes, and you go Makaba, and then Called by the Grave the second one, which is like the big flex, but unfortunately you can't do that anymore. So that's the engine monsters. And then just hand traps, just triple Ash, triple Phantasme, triple Nibiru. Ash is just one of the most versatile hand traps. Every deck needs to access the main deck in some way, shape, or form to play the game. So Ash Blossom's always good. I don't like this card. I really don't. I only play it just because, like, all you need to do is find any of the 1 cards into your engines, and you're in there, and you just have full access, like, for the rest of the game. And then it also helps find this going second, and this is so incredibly necessary against Dragon Link and Infernoble. The only thing I would probably change on this is I might swap this out for Drolls at some point, just because of how much it hurts things like Infernoble and Dragon Link. So that's the monster hand traps, and then there's 3 impermanents, just because it's impermanents. It's an amazing card. If you go first with it, you can still set it, and it does the same thing plus an extra effect, and then going first, if you use it, your opponent can't respond with a Triple Tactics Talents. Or if they go first and you use it, they can't respond with Triple Tactics Talents. So, it's better than Habetler. That's it for the monsters and the hand traps. Spells, it's pretty obvious. Triple, single, triple, and then triple Servant. These are just all your search cards and then your main Invocation Fusion. I don't like playing 2. I've always liked playing 3, just because the whole meme of, your opponent normal summons Alistair, you Ash or Imperm them, and then they have the invocation anyway. It's a meme because of how, like, incredibly effective it is for your opponent to Ash or Imperm you, and then you just have it anyway. They lose so much value, and all you've lost is your +1 that turn. But then because you have this and the Alistair, obviously you just do it again next turn, and you'll always have it. So, especially with, like, things like Droll and Ash going around, I really want to have these in my opener sometimes. Just if the Alistair gets stopped, and then the Dear Servant is an absolutely disgusting card. Like, the amount of setup this gives you, not just for your Dogmatika, but also for your Shaddolls, as well as just giving you elements for your fusions, like next turn or the turns after, just for free, and also picking up a card. It's just insane. And it helps break boards with Entis. because Entis is not once per turn. And then because this is invoked, I'm playing triple Super Poly. Super Poly has technically 2 set-aside targets for it, but any of my Shaddolls after I've resolved Schism can be one, as well as normal summon Alistair, use effect, they chain something, and then anything is a Super Poly target at that point, because I have anything I could go into with it. That card is disgusting. Spell speed 4 should not be legal, so 2 Cosmic, because I don't want to just hard lose to, what's this called? Eldritch. I don't want to just hard lose to Eldritch. This deck has troubles with back row because you can't really Fertilise back row. You can't really Macabre back row all that well because you only play a few traps. So just having the Cosmics is incredibly good, especially with banishing against Eldritch. It's very helpful. 1 Call by the Grave because it's unfortunately at 1. And 1 Upstart. I'll almost never play a deck without this card. My theory on this card is insane and everyone makes fun of me for it sometimes. But like he's even shaking his head because he knows I'm right. Like even back when it was not really necessary, I would still play 39 or 41 card decks with this, just because, for example, in this deck, the amount of searching you do, you can search, summon, search, and then activate this, pick up the Ecclesia, search, and you thin your deck by 5 cards, and then you go Upstart Goblin, and now you have a much higher chance of hitting things like Super Poly, hitting things like back row removal, hand traps, Nibiru's, anything. So you've thinned your deck by your engine cards, and then Upstart just lets you replace it with another card that you already searched, so it can't pick up those ones.
But if you're playing over 40,
you still play it.
It could just be that other card.
Yeah, then you just activate it. It's now that other card. It does the same thing.
But you're adding a card into your deck.
Yeah, and if you draw it and you activate it, you've now removed that card from your deck, and you're in the same position you were before. If you're at 41 and you draw the Upstart, but you activate the Upstart, now you're at 40 and you have the same number of cards.
But you gave your opponent another 1,000 life points.
And then Purgatrio deals like 8,000 because you double Alistair him and just punch through defense mode monsters.
Okay, sure.
I'll even bring up the Spiral thing, where you put this in when you were playing against Spiral. They would stack the top 3 of your deck. They would give you something they didn't want on top, and then the other 2 cards were things they obviously didn't want to give you. So you would draw, and then Upstart into something they didn't want to give you. And I'm right about that.
Okay, just keep going.
Last off, I just played 2 actual traps, not hand traps, not usable, just pure traps. Schism's just insane because if you're ever playing Maximus and you're playing the Shaddolls, this just anytime you can put Winda on the board and protect it with anything, it usually ends up being doom for your opponent if they can't out both the Winda, the thing you have protecting it, and in this deck, the backup thing you have protecting it. And then if you're ever able to resolve this a second time to summon like a Construct, just in general, or a Construct versus the Eldritch matchup, to send their 3,500 that can't be destroyed, it gets really gross. And then Punishment, it's an amazing card in so many ways. So for example, when you end up doing the Ecclesia, if you already have the Fertilise or the Maximus, or you have the Maximus and you're doing the Titanclad at the end phase, you can pick this up and then either hold it for Macabre to stop an evenly matched or an Impermanence or any trap in the Eldritch matchup, or you can just have it, set it, and it either becomes 2 pops or a pop and a recycling of your Dogmatika engine, because you can just get another Titanclad, summon another Ecclesia at their end phase, pick up another Fertilise, and just keep going. It's so versatile as a 1-up trap. It's the only actual bad card in the deck, and it still pulls triple duty sometimes on what it actually ends up doing. So that's the main deck. It's the full 40. It's technically 39, but actually 40.
Let's see the extra and side really quick.
So extra, it's real bare bones basic. This deck has probably 2 flex slots when you're playing it Invoked Dogma. So the basics, the only 2 link monsters in the deck, the double Macabre. This is one of the flex spots. You can play 1 Macabre and then have a spot. I just like having 2 Macabre all the time. It's always come up for me. I just love this card so much. Purgatrio for game. Agoides. This card is actually wild. Just the fact that this thing can get up to 4,800 if you banish Construct and just punch in, on summon it pops, and then every single turn it's just going to keep popping both on your opponent's turn and your turn, because there's no way they're not special summoning a monster, and there's no way this isn't beating over something. So it'll just constantly get you recurable advantage. That's it. That's it for the invokes. I used to play the Elysium, but I ended up cutting it for space and it rarely comes up. That's it for the invoked side of it. Now for the rest of it's basically just Dogma and Super Poly targets. So for Dogma, it's the 3 shit-alls, the 1 you always send, the 2 you try to summon. If you end up opening Nadir, you can send this first, pick up the Schism, discard the Schism, send this off of Maximus, and then just pick up the Schism off of her effect and keep it in hand. And that way you don't end up pitching a card, or you can just add it to hand, pitch a card, and then have access to both of these later in the game. It basically depends on whether or not you're against like a combo deck and you really need the advantage, or you're against a grind deck and you're going to need to go turn 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 over and over. So I'll take any reason I can to put Shadalls in a deck for any reason whatsoever. So these are always going to stay basically, unless the Maximus comes out. And then targets for Nadir and Punishment is just 2 Entis, 2 Ash Dragon. These cards are insane. They have 2500 attack, which is the sweet spot. It lets you pick up any of your cards in the relevant Dogmatika stuff. This lets you break boards going second. This lets you recur advantage going first. And it's just, they're disgusting. It's just so good how many you can get. And then with the Agoides, after you've used these and you have no more need for them, you just banish them to put her up to 45 every turn. And then Super Poly targets, Mud Dragon, and Starving Venom. There'll almost always be a way to Super Poly into this nowadays because of Rusty being back for some reason, as well as Dragoons. If they set up Dragoons without using the spell, like if they have to do the Verde first, this will always be live, or this will always be live. This just comes up in so many niche matchups, like even in the mirror match, when they set up like Makaba and Ecclesia with the Fertiles in hand. That's light spellcaster, light machine, this, and then you're just good to go. Against things that play like back row, specifically like Rusty, you can call the element you're going to summon the most, and now you've turned off their Fog Blades, so they're no longer able to interact with you, and then just things like Impermanence and stuff. This card's just really good, and then you can just do it on your opponent's turn as well to keep them off of their targetings. And then of course, like Super Poly, these also just all come up with Super Poly, just because they're all summonable from it. And that's the extra.
Alright, and let's see the side.
The side deck's really rough just because there's no actual paper play, and remote duels are pretty, like, few and far between out here.
This is pretty much just a side deck for me and Dean.
Basically. So, Triple Gamma Seal, once again, secret for some reason. The card's just insane. Anytime you can kaiju something and just run it over is insane, especially with it, like, if you're able to Agoides, and then, not obviously turn 1, and then kaiju them, you can trigger Agoides to either pop the kaiju, or pop something else, and then Agoides can just run over the kaiju by making herself 45 or 48. So it's just so easy to get out of. And then any of your fusions can run this thing over as well. Triple Lancia, because just any hand trap that lets you, lock out an entire mechanic for an entire turn is just insane. These are just floodgates in the hand, with Call by the Grave being at 1. The Lance and Droll are just amazing cards. They're just not always amazing at the same time, and not always amazing against every deck. But like I said, the only thing I would probably change with the main is replacing the Ashes with these, just depending on how the meta unfolds. The third Cosmic, just because I don't like maining the third, because if you're against like Dragon Link or Infernoble, it rarely comes up, so opening more than one of it really starts to suck, and you never want to play 3 of a card you're not okay with seeing 2 of, so I'm siding the third of this one. And then Triple Evenly, this goes in instead of the Nibiru against things like Eldritch, things like Guru, things like Altergeist. And sometimes it goes in as with those cards against like really, really heavy combo decks. So, card's just insane. And then 2 Ice Dragon's Prison. This is kind of my replacement for Called by the Grave, but specifically only when I'm going first. Because against Dragon Link or Infernoble, it's all warriors and it's all dragons. So this will constantly come up, and then against Eldritch, this card is absolutely insane. Because if they summon Eldlord and then try to use a trap with an Eldlord in grave, you can summon back their Eldlord and then wipe 2 of them, dropping into only 1 Eldlord left in the game. And as soon as you put them off of that 3rd Eldlord, they lose every single time. They have no ability to recur them because nobody's actually playing the trap card that can recycle it. I don't even think that trap card can recycle it. That's it.
Alright, is there anything else you want to say, or is that done?
Shout out to Konami for making Ultimate Golds coming in like a month.
We don't know that.
It's so happening.
Okay, George.
Come back to this video if it's not and we'll laugh. But if it is, I'll be the one laughing.
Alright, well, thank you guys so much for watching this deck profile. Hopefully you got some good ideas from it, and hopefully George can no longer be undefeated coming in the next one.
Try it.